Across history, civilizations have collapsed for many reasons: war, famine, disease, economic implosion. But behind the noise of political failure and social decline, there is a quieter force that has shaped the rise and fall of empires for thousands of years: water, the most essential resource on Earth, the foundation of agriculture, cities, money, and life itself. And here's what nobody tells you. Many analysts suggest the world may now be entering the early phases of a 5-stage global water collapse, a cycle that has repeated across ancient civilizations and may be unfolding again, only this time at planetary scale. This is where the pattern begins. Right now, in the viewer's own financial present, water stress is affecting food prices, farmland yields, migration patterns, energy grids, and industrial production. Some economists argue that water scarcity is already embedded in rising grocery costs, insurance volatility, and regional instability. But the deeper truth is that the global water system is not failing suddenly. It is failing sequentially, in stages that historians have documented many times before. The pattern looks like this. Stage 1, depletion. Water use grows faster than natural replenishment. Stage 2, stress. Rivers shrink, aquifers fall, rainfall shifts. Stage 3, scarcity. Agriculture weakens, cities ration, prices rise. Stage 4, geopolitical pressure. Nations fight over rivers, basins, and rights. Stage 5, systemic breakdown, migration, famine, conflict, or collapse. Analysts suggest we are somewhere between Stage 2 and Stage 3 globally today, if one accepts this historical framework. To see the full pattern clearly, we must begin with the first civilization that fell victim to it: Mesopotamia, the cradle of cities, writing, and organized agriculture. Around 2500 BCE, the region experienced explosive growth fueled by the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Irrigation networks expanded, populations grew, wealth increased, but success carried a hidden cost. Year after year, farmers irrigated their fields with river water rich in dissolved minerals. As the water evaporated, salt accumulated in the soil. Yields dropped. Cities fought over increasingly unproductive land. Economies strained. Some historians say Mesopotamia's decline was not caused by enemies or incompetence, but by the slow poisoning of its own soil through water misuse. This is where the pattern begins: growth followed by depletion. At first, it looked like a miracle: endless grain, expanding cities, rising prosperity. Then the bill arrived: salinization, crop failure, territorial wars. Everyone thought they were safe. They weren't. The danger wasn't what they saw, the rivers flowing and crops growing, but what they ignored: the silent degradation beneath the surface. The second major warning comes from the Indus Valley civilization, which flourished from 3300 to 1300 BCE across what is now Pakistan and northwest India. For centuries, the region relied on predictable monsoons and a vast river network. But climate research suggests monsoon patterns shifted over time. Rainfall weakened, rivers migrated, wells and reservoirs dried up. Urban centers such as Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa did not fall to war. They simply emptied. The population dispersed as water disappeared. Let me show you exactly how Stage 2, stress, destroys a civilization. When rain becomes unpredictable, cities depending on stable water supplies begin to fail quietly. Agriculture shrinks, trade networks weaken, people migrate toward wetter regions, political power splinters. The power structures collapse not because of chaos, but because of absence, the absence of water to sustain the complexity they built. Some climate historians argue that what happened to the Indus Valley mirrors modern vulnerabilities today. If this pattern applies globally, shrinking rivers, irregular rainfall, and aquifer depletion may represent the early signals of a systemic shift. Here's why this matters. Water scarcity does not announce itself with a single catastrophic event. It appears slowly, first as higher food prices, then as smaller harvests, then as stressed power grids, then as regional conflict. To understand how this connects to our present moment, consider the modern analogs emerging across the world. In California's Central Valley, one of the most productive agricultural regions on the planet, Groundwater has been pumped so aggressively that the land has physically sunk more than 20 feet in some areas over the last century. Wells run dry. Farmers drill deeper, and deeper, and deeper still. This is Stage 1 and Stage 2 happening in real time. Depletion turning into stress. In the Middle East, the Jordan River system, once vibrant, has shrunk to a fraction of its historical flow. Nations compete for access. Water scarcity shapes politics, alliances, and instability. This is the beginning of Stage 4, geopolitical pressure. In China, analysts note that shifting rainfall patterns and glacial melt threaten the long-term stability of rivers feeding hundreds of millions of people. In India, groundwater extraction is so intense that satellites can detect the loss of aquifers from space. In South Africa, Cape Town came within weeks of day zero, when taps would run dry. And in the American Southwest, the Colorado River, which sustains 40 million people, is drying so quickly that 7 states cannot agree on how to divide what remains. Not scarcity, pressure, not catastrophe. Sequence. This is why some economists argue global water stress may now be shaping everything from farmland prices to urban migration to geopolitical alliances. Here's what nobody tells you. Water collapse almost always begins at the invisible level. Drops in river flow, changes in rainfall timing, slow declines in aquifers. And only later does it erupt into conflict, famine, or displacement. We've seen this cycle in ancient history. We've seen it in medieval societies. We've seen it in modern dust storms and failed dams. But the deeper question remains. If the 5-stage water collapse pattern has repeated across civilizations, are we now entering the next stage? Section 2 will complete the pattern, revealing how ancient collapses reached their tipping points, how modern societies may be moving through the same sequence, and what scenarios analysts warn could unfold if Stage 3 turns into Stage 4 and Stage 5 on a global scale. Because the danger isn't the water we can see disappearing. It's the water we still assume will be there tomorrow. The pattern that began quietly in ancient river valleys now stretches across continents, threading through the infrastructures of modern civilization. To understand how this sequence ends, we must complete the cases begun in Section 1 and follow the 5-stage water collapse cycle to its historical conclusion, and then apply that same framework, conditionally, to the world unfolding around us today. When the Indus Valley civilization reached its point of no return, it did not fall in fire or chaos. It simply emptied. People left the cities in waves, abandoning homes, granaries, workshops, and public baths. Archaeologists describe it as one of the largest population shifts in ancient history, and it was driven not by war, but by Stage 3, scarcity. When the rains weakened and rivers moved, the agricultural surplus that supported dense urban life disappeared. Without surplus, cities lose meaning, complexity collapses, society flattens. The people returned to small agrarian villages in areas where water still flowed. This is the quiet violence of water collapse, not sudden destruction, but the slow unraveling of everything built on predictable cycles of rain and river. Now we move to the third case, one that brings the pattern into the modern era with chilling clarity: the 1930s Dust Bowl. Here's what nobody tells you. The Dust Bowl wasn't merely a drought, it was a systemic water failure caused by decades of overfarming, soil depletion, and ecological mismanagement combined with climate variability. When rainfall declined, the land had no resilience left. The soil turned to dust, crops died, livestock starved, and millions of people fled the Great Plains. It was Stage 4, geopolitical and economic pressure, compressed into a national trauma. The Dust Bowl displaced entire communities and reshaped American demographics. It transformed how governments approached land, agriculture, and water. And it revealed a brutal truth. Water scarcity doesn't need to be global to be catastrophic. It only needs to strike the system's weak points: food production, energy supply, or population centers, to trigger widespread instability. Let me show you exactly how this pattern repeats, again and again. Across history, societies expand during wet periods, push deeper into marginal lands, build bigger cities, and assume the water cycle will remain generous. But when rainfall shifts, Whether due to natural cycles or human-driven change, those same societies face the gap between what they built and what water can now support. And the larger the society, the harder the crash. This is where the modern world appears most vulnerable, according to analysts who study water stress scenarios. Because unlike ancient civilizations, today's societies are built on global interdependence. Megacities, industrial agriculture, multinational supply chains, and economic systems that depend on constant resource flows. If Stage 3 water scarcity deepens, the consequences ripple far beyond any one region. This brings us to the conditional application of the 5-stage framework to the modern world. Stage 1. Depletion, already underway. Groundwater levels are dropping across the United States, China, India, the Middle East, and parts of Africa. Some aquifers take centuries or millennia to refill. Analysts warn that the world's largest food-producing regions may be mining water faster than nature can replenish it. This isn't crisis. This is the precursor to crisis. Stage 2. Stress, visible today. Rivers like the Colorado, the Yellow River, the Nile, and the Euphrates are shrinking. Glaciers feeding billions are melting. Rainfall patterns shift year by year. Power grids depending on hydroelectric dams experience volatility. Crop yields fluctuate unpredictably. This is the stage where societies still believe they can manage the problem, until the pattern accelerates. Stage 3. Scarcity, emerging regionally. Some economists argue that water scarcity is already embedded in rising food prices and volatile energy markets. Farmers around the world face rationing. Cities like Cape Town, São Paulo, and Chennai have approached day zero. Industrial facilities that require massive water inputs for cooling, manufacturing, or processing face increasing constraints. Scarcity doesn't collapse societies overnight. It weakens them slowly, then suddenly. Stage 4. Geopolitical pressure, growing warning signs. This is the stage where competition turns into conflict. Border tensions intensify. Nations disagree over dam construction. Regions upstream accuse downstream regions of mismanagement. Downstream regions accuse upstream regions of theft. Some analysts reviewing historical water conflicts suggest the Middle East, South Asia, and parts of Africa already show early indicators of Stage 4 dynamics, if one accepts this framework. Rivers crossing borders become points of leverage. Water becomes a political weapon. And as populations grow, the stakes rise. This is the trap. Because water shortages don't merely strain governments, they expose them. Stage 5. Systemic breakdown, scenario-based future. What does a global Stage 5 look like? Economists and historians emphasize that outcomes vary widely. Scenario models include several possibilities. Soft landing scenario. Nations invest in desalination, water recycling, efficient irrigation, and technological solutions. Cities modernize infrastructure. Agriculture adapts. Society stabilizes, though with higher costs and lower margins. Reset scenario. Governments impose strict rationing, restrict agricultural water use, redirect flows toward essential industries, and reduce water-intensive exports. Populations adjust under a new normal of scarcity. Hard break scenario. Water scarcity triggers mass migration, economic contraction, failing food systems, or regional conflict. Nations enter competitive survival mode, and the global order reshapes around water security. Analysts suggest that which scenario unfolds depends not on technology alone, but on political cooperation, economic incentives, and the speed at which societies transition to sustainable water systems. Here's why this matters. The water collapse pattern does not need to be global to be destabilizing. A failure in any of the world's 3 major breadbaskets, the U.S. Midwest, India's agricultural belt, or China's northern plains, would send shockwaves through global markets. Food prices would spike, trade networks would strain, social tensions would rise. And all of this connects back to a single, overlooked truth. Water is the foundation of every economy on Earth. Banks can print money. Governments can issue bonds. Central banks can manipulate interest rates. But no institution can manufacture water at the scale agriculture, industry, and cities require. This is the hidden power of the five-stage collapse pattern. It operates outside human control, even though human behavior accelerates it. Some economists argue that the modern world may still have time to avoid a Stage 5 global crisis. Others believe Stage 3 is already underway and accelerating. But all agree that the system is moving, and the direction is unmistakable. As we reach the end of this documentary, the message becomes clear. The danger isn't that Earth is running out of water. The danger is that we built a civilization that assumes it never would, and now the bill is arriving.